Welcome to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. I am your host, Nicole Frolick, and I invite you to cozy up with me each week as I explore all aspects of the spiritual journey, spiritual biohacking, and expanding the mind beyond this reality. Remember that the collective awakening can start by planting one seed. So thanks for being such an amazing audience and sharing these shows with your family and friends. So without further ado, let's jump right into the episode and find out what we're discovering today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the enLIGHTenUP podcast. I am so happy to be back here with you tonight as I have a very special guest joining us, Alexia Icenhower, who is a digital researcher who specializes in nanotechnologies and parasites. And tonight we're going to get into the topic of light production, consciousness, and how that is working with the mitochondria of our body. Alexia, nice to have you on the show. Oh, shoot. You are not coming through on the audio. 1 second. Let me just get that figured out. Why isn't that happening? Okay, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi there. I'm so sorry about that. Whew. Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. So, wow. So guys, if you missed the show that I'm doing with Thomas every Wednesday night on his YouTube channel, True Reporting 2.0, Alexia was with us last Wednesday evening, and we had a great time going into a big topic of parasites, which we will talk a little bit about tonight. I think it's important, but we're going to take things a little further than what we did on Wednesday night's show and go into how we create our own light, right? And how our own consciousness is embedded within our cellular structure and how it's how the mitochondria is responsible for a lot of this. We're going to get into so much. And Alexia's going to take your questions too, guys. So just so you know, if you do have questions, write the word question in cap locks and then whatever your question is. Your question doesn't have to be in cap locks, but just write question in cap locks so I can find it later. All right. So where should we start? Because there's so much to talk about.
This is the tale oldest time. Whenever I started awakening, light and this light consciousness idea kept coming up. It doesn't matter if you go to religion or the metaphysics or even the science aspect. Light, the smallest particle is a photon, which is just light. And we live in a world, a beautiful world, which has vibrations all around us and light, which create our visible existence. So I think that's a good place to start off with anyone's journey into the science aspect. And I know you have a really good article which kind of summarizes what I've been looking at myself. And I want to get into that so we can see, what is this universe made out of? What is it? It's the light.
Yeah. And I think it's important too that, one of the posts, I did a video recently, and it was the message that I was being guided to put out before we did this podcast was the importance of understanding that we find more of our light in our own darkness, and it's important at these times where I think a lot of us feel like the planet's on fire with everything that's kind of going on and what we're like every conspiracy theory is coming true all at once. It's almost like too much to handle. And, with everything that's happening. And I think it's so important. The message that I received was now more than ever, it's so important to face our fears. It's so important to face what's hiding in the shadows, in the darkness that we've been running away from, not wanting to look at. We're not at that place anymore where we can afford to not look at it. We have to face it. And more so because if there's anything that any of my viewers might be really familiar with, and I know, Alexia, you and I kind of chatted about this yesterday on the phone, but we're being faced with a moment in humanity where we have to stick up for our rights. We have to know how to defend our rights. We need to know what to say. And none of us really truly know what our rights are. We've been so conditioned through convenience that we're so compliant to what authorities tell us that we've forgotten our own internal authority, which is connected to source, light, God, creator, wherever you want to call. And I think we're kind of having this come to Jesus moment in 2021 with everything being like a dumpster fire on Earth right now on this planet. And again, every conspiracy theory that we've seen pretty much coming true all at once, that we're being forced through this fast tracking of, oh my gosh, I need to know this now. And I need to know it like the back of my hand so I can speak it, not just coherently, but with confidence so that the energy matches the words.
That's beautifully said. I want to add so much. Earlier, when you were explaining your video from yesterday and shining the light on the darkness, well, if you bring light to dark, it won't be dark anymore. You're bringing the light. So like you said, we are facing these extremely scary moments, and I think we all need to do it together, because I have noticed that the more we come together and share our ideas, which ideas, they spark a synapses in our brain. It's literally light sparkage. So when you're having an in-depth conversation like we do, and kind of get all these researched articles and start connecting the dots together, that is a storm. Literally, if you look at a synapses brain of a smart person, like reading or anything, it looks like a storm, lightning going off, firing. So us talking, us being in the same chat rooms and just all listening to the same message, it's awakening. It's doing something so magical that we don't even fully understand it, really. Was there a second part of that? I'm so sorry.
No. And to that point, I want to say, because I mentioned this in the notes of the show, that what we're going to be talking today too is about how all of this activates higher DNA activations. Okay, so activating more of the higher parts of our DNA that have been dumbed down or remained, what's the word? Not stagnant, but almost turned off. You know, like we can't access it. We're not able to access those parts of our DNA as much. And our mitochondria hold our entire hereditary gene code. So it's important. The mitochondria plays a very important role in, when we talk about our consciousness awakening us, it's also activating our DNA technology, which as a human race, our skin suit, believe it or not, is pretty powerful. And this is why we've been dumbed down. This is why there's so much control and limiting factors put on us, used by the greatest weapon ever, fear, okay, to put us in a state of compliant to, again, this perceived authority that is not allowing us to fully activate that which we're holding. We're literally holding the keys within our codes. So let's kind of jump into this. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready in the chat to jump in? Okay, let me go over to, I think, which one is it? I think it's this one. Yes. Okay. So Alexia won't be able to see this chat, but I'm going to read this, guys. This article I just found today, and I've got it in the show notes for you. It's called "Do Quantum Effects Play a Role in Consciousness?" And for everyone listening on the podcast in iTunes or Spotify later, this is in the show notes. Mods, if you want to drop this link in the chat, that would be great. But I just want to take you down to one section here first before we get into it, where it talks about light. Light has such symbolic resonance for humanity. It features in art, religion, literature, and even in how we talk about knowledge. We speak of enlightenment and seeing the light, for example. It seems fitting, therefore, that it might play a physiological role as well. Just how light is involved in the signaling processes that constitute the central nervous system and its emergent property, consciousness, is still not clear, but inevitably there are photons. Where there are photons, there might be quantum mechanics. And as Alexis just talked about, photons are like the smallest light particle. So let's go down here. I want to take you down the article to altered states of consciousness. And in here, they're talking about the role of anesthetics on our consciousness, because they've been studying that through quantum physics. But let me take you to this part here where it talks about photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, there is some evidence that the movement of energy through the structures that constitute the photosynthetic network exploits quantum effects such as coherence. Specifically, the structures that seem to allow this coherent transfer are chromophores, the parts of a molecule that give it its color. Now, remember chromophores, that's an important word. Research suggests that instead of moving between the discrete energy levels of an arrangement of chromophores, energy can be spread out or delocalized across more than one chromophore at a time. What is interesting in the context of quantum consciousness is that nerve cells contain structures such as microtubules and mitochondria that might support coherent energy transfer in a manner similar to that in photosynthesis. And remember, photosynthesis is what plants use to convert light. Microtubules form part of the cytoskeleton or eukaryotic cells, and those with a nucleus enclosed in an envelope found in plants and animals, and some prokaryotic cells. Okay, they provide shape and structure and are instrumental in cell division as well as the movement of motor proteins. Now, let me just take you down. Okay, so they say they are made up of polymers of tubulin proteins, and within these are chromophores similar to those found in photosynthetic networks. Chromophores are also found in mitochondria, the power stations of the cell. Our mitochondria are what powers everything up. It gives us all of our energy. Okay, when we talk about frequency and energy, the mitochondria is a very important organelle within our cells. So this has led some researchers to suggest that anesthetics work by disrupting coherent energy processes and in turn disrupting consciousness. So they're talking about anesthetics in this part of the article and how the drugs can interfere in this process. So let me just bring Lex back on. So let's talk about first photosynthesis.
Yes.
So that we understand how plants take in light, because if our bodies are doing very similar things that plants are doing, this is very interesting.
It's very interesting. And I want to make it very clear, I do not believe in evolution the way that our schools and everything push evolution. However, there is a theory, and of course they call it evolution, how our mitochondria, which has eukaryotic cells, human mammal cells, actually evolved from prokaryotic cells. And they're saying that we have the same organelles that basically are the same organelles in plant cells that have the ability to use photosynthesis and store its own energy. So there's a theory that, of course, we could technically create our own energy like a plant. And I'm sure plants also need other nutrients in the soil, so they're not just making their own energy and using it. They do use outside energy. However, a main source would be us making our own energy. Now, to explain why I don't believe the evolution of that, I do know a lot about parasites, and I do know that there's a parasite that invades host cells, and there has been shown and proven parasites changing blood types of people or the recessive genes of people, and we already have scientific proof of this. So who's to say that whatever form we came from that allowed us to use our fully activated cells and bodies and DNA, who's to say that we weren't infected with a gene changing or hindering parasite? That's where I think kind of happened, who knows how long ago. And once you bring in parasites into the system, this is where I get into parasites travel all throughout us, and they leave a waste of heavy metals and minerals wherever they travel. So if they're in your synapses, then that means that you can't make connections. You'll never make a connection if there's aluminum, which aluminum is not a conductive metal, it's an insulator, meaning that energy, light can't travel through it, it's going to stop. And that's why we do use conductive metals in our bodies, and our natural bodies contain copper and gold, because I think this light can travel through us and it doesn't hinder these synapses. So I'm thinking if this photosynthesis is available in us, available to create an energy form, we're not going to be able to use it if we're full of heavy metals or pathogens like parasites.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to say with the photosynthesis theory with mammals being able to use it.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about then this idea of plants bringing in light and how, well, okay, I'm just being guided right now to talk about how plants will always try to face the light, and also the wider the, like, say, let's just say the leaf, okay, that is bringing in the light, the broader and wider the leaf, the more light that it can take in. It's almost like I'm being shown, right? Sorry, I'm being given some information right now. Okay. It's, they're making it akin to our energy field. I'm being shown our energy field, and that it's almost like the bigger our energy field, the stronger the field around us is, the more we're able to take in more light. It's almost like we're trapping in that light. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And that's kind of what you covered on Thomas's show. Eckhart Tolle, he explains this energy field around us, and he was super depressed when he had some parasitic entity latching on and using his field, and then he got rid of it however he did, and then he was able to harness, and he kept talking about this energetic field, making it brighter, bigger, and anyone he would be around would immediately be healed, almost like if they had a headache, they would come into him and be healed just because they were next to him in his field, he said. So that's really interesting you brought that up.
Yeah. And so I'm just seeing that this is why it's so important for us to expand our conscious awareness, because the more we expand, the more light we're actually able to bring in to our physical body and increase the light quotient of our cells. So when we increase the light quotient of our cells, like we talk about the light body and all of that, but the physical body has to mirror that light body as well.
It does. And let's not forget, everyone, that in 2008, NASA actually came out and said staring into the sun and sun gazing for the first hour in the morning of sunrise and last hour of sunset, and starting off slow in just like 10-second intervals can actually heal. So why is it that, like you said, with the plants using their leaves, and that's why you want to have more leaves and foliage so they can receive more light, us looking at a dim version of our sun, our light source, apparently gives us light if it's healing. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm also being I'm getting so much information right now. I'm being shown while you're saying that this is why we need to rewire our entire nervous system and remap our neurons so that we're rewiring to engage. It's almost like when you see like all these different leaves like branching out, it's then we see that that's also able to rewire the neuron signaling so that we start turning on certain parts of the brain that haven't been turned on yet. So, I mean, I think most everyone who's listening to the show understands that we use like, 5% of our brain, you know? Yeah. And so it's almost like this is helping to turn on that kind of expanded synaptic network. Yes. Thank you. And so, oh my God, I'm like overheating. Guys, I'm sweating right now. I am overheating. Like, what is going on?
It's like she's a light body, you guys.
No, I'm seriously really hot right now. This is I'm sweating down my back. My back is dripping. I don't understand. Oh my God. It's 68 degrees in my house right now.
You shouldn't be sweating.
I'm like so hot. Holy crap. Okay. So, did you want to show the audience anything right now?
Let me see. Everything can be researched. You don't need to see any pictures. I have it in front of me. What I thought was really cool, I didn't really get to look into it too much, and I've heard about this before, is the Solfeggio frequencies are vibrations of our natural healing state. I've heard that there are 7 Solfeggio frequencies, one for each note of music, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And our color spectrum ties back to the Solfeggio frequency. And basically, they're saying that light corresponds to the Solfeggio frequencies. And that would make sense because each light would be cut into a color, which I believe is how we see our matrix and can perceive our matrix. And if we are hindered at all and we haven't reran these neurons or synapses in our brains to make that electrical network, who knows what else we can see, what other colors we can see if we are being clogged. So I wanted to ask you, when you were having your download, what do your guides say to do best to do what we need to do to get our synapses working correctly? What do we have to do?
The first thing they're saying right now is breath work.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I guess they're saying breath work because it calms the nervous system down, and it then allows everything to be kind of at a neutral state, which then allows for rewiring to be much easier. That's just what the message I'm getting right now.
I would like to say something to that. I did a live with Jeff Mamora this full moon, and he has the ability to transmit and tell your body, like, everything we could make to kill, let's say, parasites. And during the full moon, I worry about parasites because that's when they come to we can get rid of them, basically. And we did a breathwork session, and he did a special breathwork and blew it into the camera, and I could feel the effects of his breath work that he did with me. And I saw die off for my parasite cleanse coming out of my skins in different areas. So I know that we had to use breath work for that. And he said that he had to harness the light through breath. And I was like, okay, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. That's a great kind of confirmation synchronicity.
Yep. Just did it.
Okay. Well, let's go over the organelles for the audience so that they can understand, like, on a cellular level, how this is working when it comes to photosynthesis.
Okay. One moment here. Okay, really, I don't know too much about this. I'm not a biologist. I was reading upon this, and I kept seeing that chemical energy produced by the mitochondria is stored in small molecule called adenosine triphosphate, which is ATP. Mm-hmm. Mitochondria can contain their own small chromosomes. Generally, mitochondria and therefore mitochondrial DNA are inherited only from the mother. So I thought it was weird, since earlier you said every conspiracy is coming true. I think it's weird that what holds our energy, our battery, basically, is adenosine. It looks just a lot like a different adrenaline.
Yeah.
And our adrenaline in itself. That's what I wanted to go into. Cortisol. We are made to produce so much cortisol. If it's not drinking these caffeine heavy drinks, for the girls, coffees, have to get one in the morning, you're dying by afternoon. You have to get one for the afternoon. Your cortisol is always being produced, and we are in a fight or flight mode at all times. And we cannot heal if we are in this cortisol high state. We cannot even think properly.
It turns off the critical thinking factors in the premotor frontal cortex.
Exactly. So of course, no one can use discernment. No one can do basic, simple things, which I've been noticing. I'm sorry, everyone wearing the mask and people who have to work in the public. I've been noticing their anger, or they're messing up on little orders, which I never care about. You're working. But over the past year, I've noticed the workers that I meet in public are defensive and mean, because imagine all the people they're seeing, and everyone is so divided right now. The maskers don't like the unmaskers. Everyone's just like, Arr. So we're constantly going out into the animal kingdom fighting, and we never can fully relax. So that messes up our entire nervous system, and it doesn't allow us to think. It doesn't allow us to heal and start creating, I know, the light at least giving us strong white blood cells, because again, I'm the parasite girl. Like, if you have strong white blood cells, then you'll be able to fight off pathogens and start removing all detoxing naturally. So I did want to say that with our energy being very synced with our adrenaline system.
Well, and it's important to understand too, guys, from a state of consciousness, if the mitochondria are responsible for producing ATP molecules, which is, goes through into the Krebs cycle. I'm pretty sure a lot of people understand this. If you went to high school and you did grade 9 science, you learned about the Krebs cycle. You may not remember too much about it, but your ATP molecules is what gives you energy for everything. So if the mitochondria holds all of our genetic codes, our hereditary genetic codes, and the mitochondria is also responsible for taking in light, right? Because it holds chromophores. I think we just talked about that. Chromophores, just like in photosynthesis, and is pulling in the light there. It is so important for us. The light is not just the sunlight. The light is all frequencies. All frequencies, guys. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the light. I'm not talking about just sunlight. I'm talking about your conscious awareness, being able to tune into all the expanded frequencies that many of us are told don't even exist, or they're not even in our awareness. And so when you expand your palette, so I'm being shown, it's like you're now consuming a broader range of frequencies, meaning you're getting more nutrients on a frequency level for your existence. They're kind of showing me like, it's almost like a universal buffet in a way where, the more that we are able to communicate through meditation, through breath work, through whatever it is that you do to tune into source energy, that you're now expanding your ability to consume or communicate, take in all of those different frequencies, which then go into the mitochondria. Our consciousness is embedded in our cells. There is a reason why when you walk into, maybe you walk into a store and you bump into someone, you start talking to them, and all of a sudden you feel like you've known them for your entire life. When you have these moments where you're like, I feel like I've known you forever. It's because your cells are holding that. Your body knows something. And so you instantly are feeling comfortable. You can't explain it, but this is where our cells hold all of our consciousness. So it's important to continuously feed it by bringing in more light, which will then increase the light quotient of a cell. So for instance, when I talk about your light quotient of a cell, how much light is your cell actually able to hold? And for a lot of us, who knows what that percentage is, but you can increase that percentage more and more as you communicate with these expanded frequencies. So I think you said there was a man in India who hadn't eaten for 70 years, or what was that?
Yeah, weird, huh? There's a guy in India, and he is rumored, he's 82 years old. Every major news network even talked about this gentleman. He's gone 70 odd years since eating, and what he says he does is he sun gazes, he gives gratitude, he does breath work, and he can suck a sweet substance from the roof of his mouth, and he goes, it's really sweet, and that's what I've been living off of. And now he is skinny, not really unhealthy looking, he looks good for 82. Mr. Johnny.
Mr. Johnny. Mr. Johnny in India?
Yeah. Jani.
Oh, okay. Jani. Okay. Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
if what we're saying is correct and we can create our own energy and power and food, why aren't we? Why can't we? Who's using our energy? Like, are we still making this energy and it's being used from us, which means we're being harvested, which means we need to turn the tables, and how do we do that? Who knows? Maybe it's just not even creating energy and we can start doing that.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily, we're not saying we are advocating for you to stop eating.
Don't stop eating, please don't.
Personally, I don't know if I really ever want to, because I come to this earth and I pretty much have a great relationship with red wine and chocolate, and cheese. So I choose to enjoy those earthly pleasures while I'm here. Man, I signed up for a huge shit show in this lifetime. I'm at least going to enjoy some of those earthly pleasures. So, I mean, if any of you don't care for those, like that's your thing. You know, I think we're all here on the individual journey. But from what I understand from the information that I've received from otherworldly beings who are able to communicate with us, these are things that are missed when and things that are not able to be experienced. So, we do have that. So, okay, let's talk about this idea. Since we're talking about being able to bring in light and energy and how our energy is used, let's talk about the harvesting, since you're so good at that. But before we get into the harvesting part of it, can you talk about the that anecdote that I think you wanted to mention to people about? There were 5 people who didn't fill their lamp lights.
Oh, yes. I was watching your last video, which was the perfect preamble to this entire show. And what came to my mind was there is a biblical story, correct me if I'm wrong, the 10 or 12 virgins, and all the girls were told to fill up their oil lamps with oil. So dark days are coming ahead. Prepare now, fill your lamps with oil. Half of them did, half of them didn't. And then the dark days came and their oil lamps were full. And they basically had enough faith to carry them through the dark times. And of course, the girls who didn't take the time to fill their lamps, they came trying to take the girls who did prepare light. And this is always a great little message for faith. And I do think faith, more of a knowing, more of an intuition. If we just found out that we are being hindered and unable to access so many of our natural abilities, then who's to say that the true knowing intuition happens when you start doing detox, when you start sun gazing, when you start activating these other parts of us? You have just a knowing. And fear doesn't, no matter how much I watch some of the 3D television that used to give me fear about situations, and just none of us know what's going on. Let's be honest. There's a bunch of rumors, but no one knows what's going on. And it's going to be scary. But if we can turn that energy, because we're going to feel it anyway, into the power to manifest, the power to heal ourselves, the power to, if we can consciously use the energy that we're feeling, which we're all going to be very passionate right now. I think that's what we were talking about earlier with light affecting consciousness. We have to be consciously aware of what we're allowing in. And I'll be looking at something and other people will look at the same thing and they'll be fearful. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is great news. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy, and I've just gotten used to it. So I'm like, you know what? I think this is the responsibility of holding the light. And everyone calls this faith, and I call it a knowing. So that's where I wanted to get with that parable in the Bible about the people who did stock up on light and the people who didn't. And I think that's more of an intent of using and keeping your light within you, and actually making it, not letting it be used for you for fear, but letting it be used for these manifesting moments or research moments or healing and just getting yourself better kind of moments. That's
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that goes to say, like, for all of us, all of you in the audience and right now, and all of those of you who are listening later on, is that this is why we've all been awakening earlier, is so that we could collect more light for ourselves, to awaken more, so that when the war came, which it's already here, we are prepared for it. We are prepared. We won't be stumbling. We have knowledge, we have wisdom, we've discovered certain inner strengths through healing. So let's get into the parasites, because if they're harvesting our energy, we're not fully harnessing our own power plant within, right? And which means it's limiting how much the mitochondria can actually do, or it's using our mitochondria's purpose for a completely different plan.
Yes, it's controlling our energy centers, basically. And I want to go over the term parasite. I usually have to use that term mainly because when you look up .gov medical articles, scientific reviews, they use the word parasites. And a lot of people call this different things, whatever their expertise is from, be it religion, this, that, the other. I can almost find any correlation to some of these demons or bloodsuckers. I even have a whole correlation that vampires are parasites. And it's hard because we also, anyone who takes probiotics, makes their own yogurt, kombucha, you're taking in good, hopefully, organisms that help us and actually are symbiotic to us. And yeah, we're giving them nutrients, but they're also giving us stuff in return, or being the good gut bacteria. So, and then we talked earlier, humans, we consume either meat or vegetables, either which grow from the ground. A lot of vegans come to me going, well, we're parasites. And I'm like, but do we have to be? I mean, technically, like, we could maybe make our own light. So we're being made to be parasites, very possibly too. So the parasites I'm talking about are the ones that are causing each and every of the 10 diseases, that the top 10 diseases that kill man. Put any disease and go caused by parasites, and you'll see a really long drawn out word with a bunch of vowels that you can't say. And it usually has osis or itis. And that's like a parasite. And you pull it up, it's like, and it says this long word that you'll never know. And then it says parasite, like, yeah, that's what it is. So those parasites are obviously not beneficial, or not being used beneficial to humans and our growth. And for some reason, I think the Bible's full of anti-parasitics, and some of those being natural, mainly herbs, wormwood, hyssop, frankincense, myrrh, and then fasting is all cheap and free ways basically to starve out parasites, which you do surrounding the full moon. And you can look into Dr. Clark's parasite protocol. She has a great one that I recommend everyone start off using. And then if you want to bump it up a notch, or you have a more serious illness, you can go look at Dr. Humble's and Clacker's protocols. And all of these are just different ways to kill different parasites and possibly remove their waste, which is almost as dangerous as themselves, which are all the heavy metals within us. And that's ultimately my end goal, is the removal of the heavy metals, because I'm pretty sure that's what's blocking all of these capillary synapses from getting the information or blood or oxygen to the part of our brains or bodies that need oxygen.
Yeah, so that we can start firing off at greater speeds and actually utilize more of our brain.
Exactly.
And for everyone in the audience who may not understand parasites, I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of you do, but just in case, parasites need a host in order to live. They cannot survive on their own. So they can't create their own energy. They need to use something or someone else's energy. Whereas we, I believe, wholeheartedly, we are energy creators. We create our own energy. Do we use things like food and water and all that? Absolutely. But we can produce our own energy. I mean, you guys literally just saw it like 10 minutes ago when I'm sitting here bringing in downloads and I'm on fire. And that's because there's energy moving through me like crazy. And so we can turn that dial up as much as we want and start producing more energy, bringing in more energy, just through our own conscious awareness. And so let's kind of go into this idea of the impact of heavy metals on our awakening, okay, and our conscious awareness.
Oh, goodness. Where I want to begin with this is, and it goes into parasites, but anyone can look it up now. Parasites cause dementia, Alzheimer's, autism, and the very, very strong subject just because of how people might be getting them. And then it comes to conspiracy against the state and different industries. We're not talking about that. We're just like, okay, now you woke up, you realize that you have memory problems. We have people who are mute. They can't even talk. we're being dumbed down almost. Why is this happening? Why are, when people do these parasite heavy metal cleanses, these children who were mute before now can start talking and singing and making jokes, which making jokes is a whole different part of the brain, to realize the complexity of stuff. So I have seen people do after parasite cleanses and stuff. There's testimonials on, I can send them to everything I'm talking about. I'll send to Nicole so she can put on Telegram or something. And basically we know that cognitive diseases and disorders are made by these heavy metals. And for some reason, when we reverse it, people are reversing their symptoms known as Alzheimer's, dementia. And that is on a very small level happening to people around us every day. So what is it doing to us as a collective? And of course, we're only as fast as our slowest runner, I do think. So all this separating, like, no, we need to do a worldwide cleansing, either be it sound work, breathing work, light work. And we also see this, to me, this is all confirmed when I see Bill Gates trying to cover the clouds or cover the sun coming because everything's melting.
Well, let's talk about that because someone in the audience asked that question earlier on. If we could talk about that.
Yeah. They don't want us to get light, and light is one of the top 5 things that kills parasites. And that's why they always have to be under cloud cover. And we've been seeing artificial clouds lining our skies for how many decades? And it's gotten worse in recent times. And you have to realize it's not so much. I've seen clouds dissipate really quickly, and these clouds after airplanes don't dissipate. They just stay there, and it's a kind of cloudy day. So we're not even allowed to get some of the sun that we need sometimes. And there's conspiracies everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Can we, I'm just getting some, I'm being asked to guide you towards talking about the parasites, the full moon being how parasites are drawn to our intestinal gut during a full moon, which is when we should be starting the cleanse. Like that's when we should be cleansing them out, is over the full moons. What is it about the moon that pulls them towards the gut? Because the gut is our intuitive center. And the moon is the symbolic of our divine feminine energy. It's symbolic of our intuition and it being pregnant with light at the full moon. What is the correlation there?
I have my own theory on this one. So the science behind the moon and parasites, and this isn't even woo-woo stuff. This is actually practice at hospitals. I've talked to plenty of RNs and they're like, yep, we're told if someone comes back from the Amazon rainforest and they obviously have parasites, like known, they can see it. They're told to come back about 3 days before the full moon. And that's when they are visible in the stomach, because they don't live. We think of parasites and we think they're just in our intestinal tract. Really, they don't live there. They live all throughout our body, and they all just need to go get food from our intestines. And they're all in this cicada cycle of the moon, and they all start traveling to our intestines 3 days, the week of the full moon, 3 days before, 3 days after. And they eat during this time. They mate and fertilize eggs by the tens of thousands at this time. And no wonder, if you look up mind control parasites, we already know that there's 10 zombie-like parasites that control human behavior. If you look up what causes parasites cause schizophrenia, you're going to see the Toxoplasma gondii, which is the feline parasite, because the parasite can live in a cat through all the life cycles. So even people who don't have cats, this is a very common parasite that causes depression and suicide. And my cats are on parasite cleanses. They're probably cleaner than me, honestly, now. But we all have these different parasites. So if they're in us and doing a crazy thing together, joining in our intestines during the full moon, that's probably why everyone's crazy during the full moon and acting irrational, because we don't have control of that situation. So if you're going to do a parasite cleanse, start 3 days before a full moon. I love the Dr. Clark's wormwood, black walnut, and clove combination because it kills even the babies and the larvae and the different stages of parasites. It's going to do a big portion of many of them. And people, you won't feel that bloated feeling that you get every full moon. You're not going to get in fights with the spouse as much if you actually start this. You won't even, those eggs at least won't be able to be fertilized. So you're stopping a huge battle and killing some of the larger bugs. So
what is it? That's all very, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I know I'm feeling like I want to do a parasite cleanse for the next full moon cycle, because we're just coming off of it now. But why I know that they need to get their food, right, from the intestines. What have you come across any other information, or even just your own perhaps intuitive hits that you've received about why they're guided there during the full moon?
I've made a correlation, and you just said that the moon goes off of our feminine being. And I did, my very first podcast was actually about Chung and the Moon Bunny. And it's a story old as time. It's one of the oldest stories. Every continent has a version of this story. And it's a goddess and a bunny making an immortal elixir on the moon. And you have to go to the moon once a year to get this elixir to stay immortal on Earth. And there's a bunch of drama behind it. And the bunny and this woman have to go to the moon. And if you look at the moon, you'll see a bunny, like it looks like the Energizer bunny, which is interesting that bunnies reference energy and what we know. So that's interesting. And it's a white rabbit that's usually referenced too. However, this is me. I've never gotten a good feeling from the moon. Everyone's like, let's do moon cycles and give graciousness. And I've always just had a irking, like, I don't trust you. And to me, my first question, just those little questions you have during awakening, like, I hope I run into an answer for this. My question was, why is it that in Sanskrit, ancient hieroglyphs, and in the Bible, humans live to be 500 to 800 years old? Why is that? Why was Moses like 600 years old? Like, that's just not normal. It shouldn't just take 40 years to walk in the desert. And it's like, no big deal. And I have a feeling that because the moon, okay, back up. If everyone were to Google right now, parasites cause infertility and parasites cause infertility, you're going to find different parasites can control a woman's fertility or infertility. So I have a feeling that the parasites are on a 28-day moon cycle being told by the moon for women to drop eggs. Now, this is important if the main crop on Earth is babies, human babies, and you need to start dropping as many eggs as possible. This would also, every other mammal on Earth, they have menstrual cycles and they drop eggs once or twice a year. But humans, nope, we do it every 12 months. We do it 12 months total in a year. So that's more ways for women to get pregnant and have babies. That's, if you only were in heat once a year, you could easily, there wouldn't even be an pregnancy, because you would know to like either do what you want to on that week or stay away from your husband on that week. There would be no babies. And that is also interesting, that if you, let's say we were to drop these eggs in a quicker succession, I don't know if a woman has ever been around a man, but when women who are pregnant are around their husband senses the pregnancy cramps and pains, and he feels what the woman feels. Husbands that are around their wife when they're in heat and doing what we do, they get cranky too. So you would only need to control one gender of humans to control all the humans, I think. So I have a feeling, I was like, okay, so if our lives were supposed to be dropping eggs every 6 months or every year, of course we would be 600 years old. If you cut that by 12, then humans would only live to be like 75 years old. Oh, wait. So
very interesting math you just did there.
Yeah, that's my theory on the moon. I think it's making us live longer, and fertility isn't always a good thing if fertility is being used to lower our
harvest our energy.
Yeah.
Very, very
I
interesting.
know. I don't like
Huh.
the moon.
So parasites can cause infertility. Um,
I also think I have a theory this is being used on lower class neighborhoods where there's a lot of Planned Parenthoods or stuff of that nature, because parasites can also cause fertility. And that, like, it goes both ways. Different ones
okay,
do different ones.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. I think many in my audience also understand where we're going with that.
Yeah.
Because we all know what Planned Parenthood is all about. So, it just makes my skin crawl just thinking about it.
Don't say that. What's making your skin crawl? More jealous?
The
I'm
plan,
kidding.
yeah.
I get it.
Okay, all right. So clearing out the heavy metals and the parasites is important. What has been your success? So people understand on how to maybe start with their parasite cleanse. Obviously, that you just told them they have to start 3 days before the full moon is a good time to start, because that's when you can actually get them through the gut and flush them out. Which, guys, if any of you have never done that before, I've never done it, but for those of you who've been on my podcast since the beginning, and Brian used to be on the show, Brian has done several parasite cleanse. He was on, was it called Mimosa Pudica?
Yes.
Is that, yeah, he was on Mimosa Pudica, and so was Lisa. And the what they would tell me they saw was like, I'm like, just stop right there, don't tell me anymore. It was so foul. And I'm like, you almost don't want to do the cleanse because you just want to be in pure ignorance of knowing what actually could be alive in your body. It's pretty nasty. So walk someone through. Can you just walk us through, without the major graphics, of course, of the parasite cleanse, just so people have an idea of what they're expecting?
Okay. So I want to say something first before all of this. When I'm explaining this to people, modern day science, they don't want us to know about this. And I hope to goodness that the doctors themselves don't even fully realize this, because they're taught to think that some parasites are just polyps. They're taught to do colonoscopies and clear everything out like an enema. So of course they clear out all the bugs that are in us, and then they look in and go, oh, there's no parasites because we just flushed them away. Or, oh, I see a parasite, I'm going to call it a polyp. You just have 3 polyps. But if you check the next day on a full moon, you might have 80 polyps. So a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, my doctor checked. I'm like, no, he didn't. Really, you're only getting a true read of how many parasites you do if you don't get flushed out before, and if you check on the full moon. Then you'll see a big difference in what's actually in our intestines. So I just want to throw that out there. Mimosa pudica is wonderful. That comes in the microbe. There's a microbe kit. It's all over Facebook. And that is one of the ingredients, along with herbs. And I've heard people talk very highly about that. Mimosa pudica seed, as well as pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, all raw, and papaya seeds. Actually, we'll eat them, and our parasites will eat them, and it'll paralyze them, which is really important when you're taking whatever your actual anti-parasitic killer is, be it wormwood, be it chlorine dioxide, be it another oxidant, be it all these different things. When you're killing and you're starting this war with the bugs inside you, you want to start off so small, because you don't want to let the bugs use their defense mechanisms. And that is the grossest part that you want to stay away from. So people go into this and they want to start on the big guys, big guns. And I'm like, start slow. Let's do pumpkin seeds and or mimosa pudica and wormwood. And this is going to get all the little guys, and even the little parasites, they do hazard to us. Like there's hair-like bugs in us that you can at least start killing for maybe two full moon cycles. Just stick with that, and you will have bulky stools, knowing that something's up. You might be going more often, but it's not going to look very different. It's because you are doing it slowly, and your body is basically digesting those bugs because they're there anyway. And it's happening slowly, and all you see is waste. But then when you start introducing oxidizers and some of these heavier things, I only will suggest a chlorine dioxide because it's the least acidic and safest one that I've seen on the market, and it's in our water supplies. It's a wonderful anti-parasitic, and I still even microdose that. I'm only using like a handful of drops all day, but that is creating a gas inside me that starts killing the bigger guys, and some of the bugs with armor, it starts even breaking down their
armor. What are you saying? Parasites have, some of them have armor?
They have like exoskeletons that you have to like eat through. And when you start doing that, you'll start losing liver flukes that are this big and this wide. Like these animals that are coming out of us, like, oh my gosh, like don't even look in the toilet. You like just flush. That's all I have to say. But these critters get really big, and what's dangerous is you want to do it slowly. You don't want to overdo your liver. You don't want to overdo your kidneys. You want to microdose anything and start small and work your way up every month. It took me 6 months to finally get to the correct dosage for my oxidant. And it's because I did it so little. And once or twice, I took too much parasites, and you're going to have a Herxmeyer reaction, where you're just going to have like mucus draining from your nose, like keep bringing it up from your lungs, almost like feel like you have pneumonia, because the parasites are jumping ship. Almost everyone will get a little rash somewhere on their body with their first couple cycles because the parasites are jumping ship. They will leave through your skin and jump out. So rashes are actually good. It's a good sign. You don't want, if you take too much, this is one example of one of their defense mechanisms. I took the full dose of my oxidizer the very first day, and I smelled like pneumonia. My eyes, everything, my throat, I could smell ammonia all throughout me. And I was like, what is this? And sure enough, one of the parasites releases ammonia when it realizes it's being attacked, and it tells all your other parasites, hey, we're under fire basically, and all your other bugs will start fighting you. And you don't want them to bite or claw, because they got claws, girl, onto your intestines. That's why you want to take mimosa pudica or pumpkin seeds, so they can't bite or hang on to our intestinal walls. They just come out. So
okay,
that's a huge strategy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like it's a total strategy. You need to go in smart. You can't just go in through this willy-nilly, guys. And I want to say to everyone in the audience, because I mentioned this on Thomas's show last week, but I don't think many of you were there. But when I was in my 20s and I was a massage therapist, I also studied live cell microscopy, which is studying blood under a dark field microscope. And I studied under this doctor who showed me how to read blood cells while they're like under the microscope, while it still looks like it's alive, like in you. So you don't kill the sample, it's still living. And I could see parasites in in the red blood cells. So the way they would show up is under a dark field microscope, it would show up glowing white, like the inside of the cell would be dark, but then there would be a white ring around the actual cell showing the cell. And a healthy red blood cell will just be round and full, but when there's a parasite in it, it will glow like from the inside out. You will see this white glow, and that means there's a parasite in there. So speaking to this, so for all of you, what I did was I went on black walnut tincture, and I did that for a couple of months. And within 2 months, because it usually takes, guys, at least 2 months for your nutritional supplements to actually start to, you would notice a difference in your body on a cellular level. Okay. So 2 months is necessary for you. It's not about just a week here or a week there. You've really got to give your body 2 months at minimum. And I noticed that almost virtually all the parasites were gone from my red blood cells. So just knowing what I saw with the red blood cell and just taking this back to full circle to everything we've been talking about right now, if the parasites are in our red blood cells, that means they're in the mitochondria as well. Correct?
Correct. And
so,
yeah.
Okay, so if this is important, guys, because this is how you clear your DNA. Okay, if the mitochondria hold the genetic codes, okay, our hereditary, the entire hereditary blueprint of our genetic codes, then it's imperative that we get those parasites out, which is how you clear and return and restore natural original blueprint frequencies. So that is important to be aware of, and how you clear out. You can, I mean, listen, I think it's important to do the supplements, but I also think it's important to use our light work, to use meditation, to use visuals, to use your intention, to use all of that, because that's powerful as well. It's super powerful. I mean, what were you just mentioning earlier in the show about parasites and light?
Well, our white blood cells, which light powers the white blood cells. White blood cells will kill and eat a huge parasite within 11 seconds. If everyone looks that up on YouTube, it's a great video, white blood cells attack parasite. And if you get like old furniture, one of the religions says to put it outside and the furniture will disinfect because of the sun, and it'll bleach it out. It'll kill all the parasites and pathogens, and then you can bring it into your home. People are realizing that light shine on these haunted houses, and they use anti-parasitics on these haunted houses, and the demons go away. And then you see ectoplasm, and everyone's like, those are ghost juices. I'm like, no, it's not. Those carry spores and parasites. Those are demons, and we breathe in the spores, and then people like commit suicide. Back to parasites, bring light on the situation, shine light on the vampires, and they won't even be able to. And that includes our light too. If you stand up to these bloodsuckers, be it if they've taken over a host completely, and then you feel bad because you're like, okay, these people that we're hearing horrible stuff from, what if they're not even them anymore, and now they're a parasite? And there's one parasite that goes back to royalty, and it killed a bunch of people. And it's the Draculonius, and if you don't die from it, it's like the creator of smallpox and the New Guinea disease, then you become a cannibal, which it all sounds so very much parasitic, vampiric, and bats themselves carry a lot of parasites, and antiparasitics kill bat viruses. And that leads us to the last administration was like, hey, you guys, there's these IVs that contain light and they're killing the virus. Or here's an antiparasitic that like helps with
chlorine dioxide
and hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
And ivermectin. I never know how to say that one. But all these antiparasitics kill this latest coronavirus that we're dealing with. So
yeah, it's all important timing here. Let's get to some questions, because there's been quite a few. So let me just see. Someone here wants to know, what antiparasitics do you use for your cats?
Oh, thank you. Sodium chloride. It's actually the part A of my chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide is a mineral solution. It's 2 parts. Chlorine sulfate. I know the crazy cat ladies sell it. It's called OxyCat, and it is an it's an oxidizer. So when they eat it with their wet food, in their stomach juices is the acid which will activate it, and it's basically chlorine dioxide once it's in their stomach.
Okay. You know what, guys? Follow my Telegram channel, as well as Alexia's in there, and we'll make sure that we put this information in the Telegram chats that we both have, so that you guys can find it, just so that you get the correct information. Yes. Blue 813 wants to know, when the parasites come out of your skin, where do they go?
Okay, so wash your bedding a lot. And what I do when I start getting the itchy skin or the rash, Epsom salt baths, any kind of salt bath, magnesium bath, that you're going to sit in. I use my chlorine dioxide in the bath, and it draws out from our skin the parasites, and then you can just wash it away, and it kills them upon them leaving. So I soak in baths dandelion tea is a good way. I've heard root teas are great to push them out quicker and faster and get them out of your body.
Okay. So guys, wash your bedding, wash your clothes, wash all of that stuff.
Cleanliness is next to godliness for a reason.
Okay. Would these parasites then, do they tend to be purged out more during the night than the day? Or does that matter?
I haven't noticed a difference.
Okay. All right. Let me see what else is here in the chat. Let's see. I know we had other questions here. I just want to make sure I don't miss them. Well, you guys are active tonight in the chat. Look at you guys. Okay. Cultivating to 5D is asking, what about the time before the moon? What does she think about the cycles in regard to no moon time?
I've heard a lot of people talk about the new moon. Like if there's no moon in the sky, there's a certain protocol that people start something when there's no moon. And I completely forgot what it was. I haven't looked into it, but I have heard of people doing something on the new moon.
Okay. Mike wants to know, can you explain how we get the parasites and how does this happen?
A lot of them are passed down from generation to generation. So I personally think the serpent in the garden was a parasite. I know that reptiles and humans and wolves can get parasites, and a parasite can control that creature and make it probably seem a lot scarier than what it actually is. I think we've been hindered back in ancient times, and I think this has been passed down from generation to generation. Also, bodily fluids, your child will have all of the parasites that of any former lovers that mom or dad or grandma or grandpa had. So we have a lot of different parasites coming in. People can't get over boyfriends, even though they might not like them or anything. It's because his parasite is in you, and his parasite wants to go back to dad. So his parasite, when you're going to bed, will be like, can we go back to dad? You should call dad. Because like people have redone these parasite cleanses, which gets rid of STDs. There's testimonials everywhere, but you also get over heartbreak. And
get out of town.
People forget. I can't remember people's last names my first boyfriends. I was like, what's his last name? Can't even remember. If you asked me before my parasite cleanse, I would have been able to tell you everything about him. It's weird. It's weird.
So if you're dating someone, their parasites are in you, and that's what makes you want to hold on to them longer?
I think
like not let them go?
I think
that's one thing?
That's one of the things. I think, and this is like known. You can like look it up. We get parasites from bodily fluids, and it can pass to the woman's child.
Wow. So that makes a lot of sense.
I think there should be a dating profile that is just like, how many, let's see your intestines. What's the state of your intestines? And then be like, make sure everyone does a parasite cleanse before the third date and you're good. Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, I will date you if you go on this 3-month moon cycle, mimosa pudica, take all that, and then
first date.
Call me when you're done, and you can take me out. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Let's do your natal chart and let's get you on a parasite cleanse.
Zephyr's like, oh my God, cooties are real. Yeah, cooties are real. Okay. Someone also wanted to know, what is the best heavy metal detox that you've found that you've liked?
Okay. I don't want to get you in trouble, and these are major words that just get channels and everything taken down. Everyone go on BitChute and write the universal antidote. That is going to give a full explanation of my favorite oxidizer. It actually has like the least oxygen, and which means it's very soft on the stomach, and it's easy to microdose and start very small. I've heard other people taking terpenes and ozone, and the problem with these, one can say these are way better because they have more oxygen and they kill more parasites. The problem with that is you kill so many bugs that your liver and kidney overload and they can't process all the dead bodies. Also, they're actual living beings that are dying inside us. They release toxins too. So you have bugs releasing like toxins into you. This will make you so tired. You have to start really small. So I just do chlorine dioxide, which is MMS as a nickname. And there's MMS1, MMS2. They're very similar. One's in a liquid form, one's in a powder form. And these get called crazy things on the internet if you look it up, because the internet doesn't want us to get better. But there are wonderful sites on Telegram that allow us to see the testimonials of the hundreds of thousands of people getting better with this stuff every day. You just have to start small and look at Jim Humble's website to understand more about that.
Okay. So yeah, guys, it's really important to understand, because I've seen this as a massage therapist who I studied nutrition from like my late teens. I've studied it. It's just something I've worked with nutritional supplements. I, again, studied the blood. I learned how to read the blood under a dark field microscope. And I had clients who would come in and start with like a liver cleanse, and like a really heavy liver cleanse, and they looked awful. After 3 weeks, their skin was gray. They felt awful. They looked like they were dying. And I told them, I said, you should not have done that first. Like, you've got to be careful when you're detoxing your body. You just don't want to go in there and go like for like full Monty. Okay. You don't want to go for it all. And you've got to do it in slow steps. So I think take it slow, and just know if you're doing anything, because obviously like this is all up for you to research and do on your own. Anything that we're saying here is not considered medical advice by any means. So we're just kind of giving you some information for you to go on and then do your own research and see what works for you. If you need to, contact a medical doctor. But all I will say is that listen to your body. If something doesn't feel good, like obviously 1 or 2 days you may feel crap, that's normal. Mm-hmm. But if it's persisting for like a week, that's not a good sign. You probably want to scale back the dosage or something that you're doing, and just know that this stuff is real. I've had Andrew Bartzis on the show, and he often on his channel will suggest parasite cleanses, and he's got one. He mentions it a lot in his videos. I don't remember which one it is. It may even be on his website, guys, under andrewbartzis.com. He offers he said it's an incredible parasite cleanse. There's also that. I'm just giving out suggestions for you guys. But what I did was I used black walnut tincture. But I'm interested though, like about the pumpkin seed.
Yes. So Dr. Clark's page goes over so many things. And the herbs, and she even has a zapper I have, which is a machine that goes on your wrist and it sends electrical impulses and it makes your white blood cells like supercharged, and that will fight off disease, viruses, parasites, all the same thing to me. Someone earlier asked, how do we get them? And I only got with like sexual partners and genetically. Also, look at this. The ingredients in these are worm larvae and heavy metals. So
for everyone who won't be seeing the video and you're listening on iTunes, she just held up the word that starts with the letter V, and it's considered, like, we call it the juice, we call it the injection, whatever you want. You guys know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Apparently, you're going to need a passport for it soon. Worm larva is in those, in the juice?
In the juice, you'll see that bug larva. They call it different little bugs, but it's worm larva is in those juices. What else? It is in the water supply, and each county does use antiparasitics, but not enough. But they do use it. We drink it in water. It comes in food. If you look up YouTube, this is disgusting and great at the same time. A lady bought pork, I think, either pork or beef, and it's just a cut, and she puts it on a plate and she pours Coca-Cola all over it. And like 30 seconds later, all these white worms start to pop up. We're getting it everywhere, you guys. It's the clouds that are above us that don't go away. Those have boron and aluminum. It's everywhere. If you're in the matrix, just get used to doing a parasite cleanse every other month for like the rest of your life until something changes. That's literally the way I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's just recap for everyone that the importance of why we're doing this is so that you have more energy for yourself, that you're able to utilize your own power plant within, which is it's an expanded version of the mitochondria on a cellular level, right? And also when it comes to activating your DNA, the higher DNA strands, okay, the ones that are not completely activated right now, when you start turning on different gene expressions, you are able to do this through clearing out the parasites from the cells on a cellular level, which includes the mitochondria, which will then activate your DNA into higher in higher modes. So that's all very, very important for you guys, and it will help you increase your light quotient within your cells, which is all tied to the light body, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay, so go ahead, plug yourself, let everyone know where to find you and what you're going to be posting there after the show.
Yes. Okay. My channel is Alexia Tweets. It's in the links below. And this is where I have a bunch of anti-parasitic and nanotech pages. Recently, there's a lot of juice reversal information I have on the channel. So if you do have to get the juice for a job, or if you're in the military, or if you accidentally got it and you want to reverse any bad symptoms you have, a nurse went into detail of how to make RNA not attached to DNA, basically, and this goes into heavy metals. It gives my favorite wormwood, what is it called? Herbal melodies. It gives my favorite oxidizers, and it gives all my research of just anything I've done up to this point. And I also have about 5 to 6 interviews now that have been posted and are pinned as my top thing. So if you want to know more about my personal process, go to my Telegram channel, Alexia_Icen tweets, and that is where I go into everything.
Perfect. And for everyone listening, I'm also going to we'll forward all the information into my Telegram channel as well, so you have it there. If you guys haven't signed up for my Telegram channel, please do, because I am going to be off Facebook now for good, starting probably tomorrow. I think I'm going to go in and delete it tomorrow. So follow me over on Telegram, as I'll be more active there and keep you guys up to date on certain things. So, guys, it's so great to see you here tonight. Thank you for all of the comments and all of the questions. Alexia, thanks for coming on the show. It was such a nice blessing to be introduced to you through Thomas.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blessing being on here. It was fun. We brought up so much. You asked the perfect questions. I feel like your guides, they knew what to ask me. I laughed because my guides told me to bring up a lot of this stuff, and I'm like, we're not going to have time.
Oh yeah, we'll find the time. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. I love you, and we'll be back with you next week. So stay in the light.